Hi, this is Ajin, and this is the Bible Applied. I talk about how to apply great scriptural truths in practical ways. The book of Philippians is a fascinating letter written by the Apostle Paul. As always, I like to begin by examining the historical setting of a letter. Paul the Apostle writes this letter to the believers in Philippi, which is a city in modern day northeastern Greece. He writes to the believers to encourage them to think of themselves in a radically different manner because they have a radically new identity. Apostle Paul writes this when he's under imprisonment in Rome. He's under house arrest, so he has relative freedom. He's awaiting trial. This is in AD 61, thereabouts. This is during the time of his first imprisonment. He lived in his own rented house. For 2 years, he was able to preach to whoever came to visit him and brought him news from the churches that he had established. He was able to influence the Praetorian Guard in the heart of imperial Rome. The Praetorian Guard is the elite wing of the Roman military. They are tasked with the safety, the security of the emperor and high-ranking officials. Early church leaders like Ignatius and Clement confirm that Paul is the author of this letter because they reference this letter in their own writings. Paul is putting lofty spiritual concepts in practical, everyday terms, easy for believers in all ages to understand. The city of Philippi lay 10 miles inland from the modern port city of Kavalla in northeastern Greece. This was a prosperous Roman colony. Since 42 BC, it is located on a major road called the Via Ignatia, was located on a major Roman road. And this is really helpful to Paul and his co-workers because they're able to make use of Roman infrastructure in spreading the gospel to the Western world. The city is named after Philip of Macedon, Alexander the Great's father. The language spoken in the city is Latin. The governors are answerable to the Roman administration. They are governed under Roman law. It's a city of a relatively large size by the standards of those days, 10 to 15,000. And this was where Paul planted the first church on European soil. It was filled with pagan gods and temples because it was a Greek city under Roman influence. And when Paul moved on from establishing the church around AD 50, this church sent him aid occasionally, financial aid that Paul is really appreciative of. And it's in response to this aid that he writes this letter. This was the only church to do so in those early days. I want to talk about a really interesting passage in the book of Philippians. It's one familiar to all of us. This is Philippians chapter 4, where Paul is talking about being content in any and all circumstances. He starts by asking the church in Philippi and to believers in all times to ask with thanksgiving, because asking with thanksgiving demonstrates faith. And he talks about the peace of God, which is shalom in Hebrew. I want to focus on this verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This verse has become a bit of a t-shirt or a coffee cup verse for modern day Christians. It is used to sloganeer around the ability to do all things. I'm guilty of that too. I used to write it in my textbook before the start of a new school year that I can do all things through Christ this academic year. Nothing wrong in using it for your personal circumstances and to use it as personal encouragement. However, the context in which Paul writes is actually very interesting. Remember, this time of his writing, he is under house arrest in Rome. And he's talking about learning the secret of being content, whatever the circumstances, whether he's well fed or hungry. He has learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. And this he can do, all of this he can do through Christ who gives him strength. It is meant to be understood in that context and less of rah rah, I can do all things because Christ is with me. It helps to know the context behind passages and behind verses and to fully understand the author's intent before we can apply it to our own circumstances today. So I hope this lesson was encouraging. Feel free to join us for ongoing series of studies from books of the Bible, one book at a time, and we delve into key insights from each chapter. Thank you.